It's starting to pop up. Very good. You doing fantasy this year? I forgot to ask.
Yeah, I got shit on this week.
I'm in the creator league, and I drafted CMC because I was first in the pick. I was first pick. He has been a disappointment. I have the league I'm doing well in. Annoying parts of doing fantasy? Cool.
All right, I got that shared.
All right.
All you got to do is hit the jingle.
Speaking of fantasy.
Not that jingle.
All right, let's get it.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 52 of the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast. I am J007TV, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Sub1KD. What's up, homie?
Oh, not much. We were talking just before we started the jingle about how wonderful our respective fantasy teams did this year, or this week in football. I'm 1 for 1 on my teams. My main, I'm undefeated so far. Good start to the season. My other one, I am winless. So I blame Connor. I blame what's his name? CMC.
Did you see? I forget who it was, but somebody shared a tweet that had this guy's team, and like fucking literally everybody on it was out, or doubtful, or injured. Like literally every single one of his players. That's crazy, but yeah, I did really good the first week. The second week, not so much. My defense didn't do well, and my quarterback didn't do all that great. I don't want to talk about who those are. Y'all can kiss my ass. But anyway,
I enjoyed playing against your boy Dax.
Yeah, he didn't have a good week, man.
No, he didn't. My guy didn't have a great week either. I have on my main team, I somehow survived. Josh Allen last week was abysmal. Like, I don't understand how I walked out of last week with him. I also don't understand how last week the Bills won in dramatic fashion and managed to somehow only put up like 12 fantasy points with their quarterback. Like, they just decided not to fucking, air the ball out. They were like, here, let's just do handoffs the entire game. And it worked for them. So good for them. Bad for me. But as I gripe about the unfairity of fantasy, I
need to correct it. Is episode 53, not 52.
I know. I can.
Yeah, no, I'm correcting for myself. Let me be great. I don't know why I thought it was 52, but I guess you know what. Also, too, we just literally recorded like 3 days ago.
Friday. Yeah.
And the episode dropped today. So I'm going out of town, and so we're recording today, and this one's going to drop early next week, Monday or Tuesday, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify
and YouTube.
When does the YouTube upload go up at the same time?
Yep. Okay. I literally just take the file and throw it on YouTube. So cool. You get all of our pre jingle chatter too. I don't edit that out. That's too much work for me. High quality.
Yeah.
Low drag. But yeah, no, it's been a busy start of the week, for crying out loud. I mean, I expected us to have some season 6 predictions to talk about and whatnot, and we got some good stuff. But we wanted to start out pointing out that our predictions for the World Series of Warzone were correct.
Yeah, I was off
along
on
with
a couple
everybody
teams.
Else on Earth.
Yeah, I was off on a couple teams, but let's talk about the World Series of Warzone. The first day was a disaster. That was where they were playing to get to a certain amount of points to start off Championship Sunday with I think it was 40 or 50 points towards match point for the first match. But the production, the technical issues that they had, they played like 6 games, I think, in 8 hours.
Remind us all real quick about how match point works, because not everybody pays that much attention.
Well, basically, if the match point is, because you have the points with the multipliers for placement and for kills, and then you get X amount of points per match that you play. And then there's a threshold. I think it was like 150. It was 150. And then the second you're at 150, if you win a game, that's it, before anyone else gets to match point and wins. So that's how that works. But it was kind of a shit show. They tried to nerf Biffle. I don't know if you saw this, but
I did.
He's looking at his settings and his chat was like, dude, why are you on? And I don't know AMD, but he was on like a 7600 when everyone else was on a 7900 graphics card. And he
Yeah.
said that the frames were just crazy drops when he was like getting in smokes and stuff like that. Because
The 7600 is roughly equivalent, I think, in terms of frameage to like a 4060. And everybody else was on basically a 4090.
Yeah, that's a pretty big difference. So
Yeah.
so day one,
it's playable, but it's
right.
not like, it's not something you sit there and be like, oh yeah, I'm really feeling good.
Yeah. So that's how day one kind of went. It was long enough that I started the watch party. And what kind of sucked about my watch party too is I couldn't figure out the sourcing. So there was like a little bit of an audio delay because I was watching on my gaming PC, but the volume was coming from the desktop on my laptop, I could never get them synced up. So next year, that's not going to be a problem because either A, I'm going to have it. No, there's no either. I'm going to have a new PC next year. That's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm going to go if it's in North America. We had some homies that got to go, and I'm extremely jealous. I had like some FOMO big time, bro. But it was really cool getting to watch, Silencer's videos and see his photos along with Lipe and then Xanthus. And, I'll mention Xanthus puts content sometimes on his YouTube channel. So you might want to go check out that video. It's like a 14-minute recap. And, those guys got to spend time with the families, like with where they were seated for the VIP area, Aiden's parents, as well as Soka's parents. And, they met the Polls Check podcast guys and stuff like that. So it was just it looked like a really, really cool experience.
Yeah. So for my weekend, I obviously, as I made the joke on Twitter last week, I gave my daughter the choice. Do you want to celebrate your birthday in Vegas at the finals, or do you want to go to, this water park place? They chose the water park place. So I got to catch snippets here and there on my phone, but definitely looked like a lot of fun. I think the bad part for me is that was actually, Vegas from where I live is easily within striking distance. Like that's a $49 flight most of the time. And so, and tickets were very affordable this year. So I think that was, that would have been nice to go to. It's something I could have done.
We could have done it for the podcast.
Yeah, written it off would have been nice. But unfortunately, my daughter decided to have her birthday party, and if I missed that, I think I'd have been in trouble. So not a big deal, inevitable on my part. But did manage to catch some of it here and there, and caught a lot of the highlights and the clips. But that thing with Biffle's PC blows my mind.
How's that possible?
I did some reading on it. So these are supposed to be the same PCs, I think, that were used on Next. And so I think by mistake, somebody grabbed a streaming PC. So he had two streaming PCs, and so that they're all on two PC systems.
Oh, that makes sense.
So they grabbed a streaming PC instead of a gaming PC and set that up for him. And unfortunately, and I think it happened to one or two other people, if I remember right.
Well, there were disconnects and everything. Like,
it was terrible.
I remember somebody, I can't remember who it was, but they told me that the packet loss was so bad and the packet burst on the day that they went to set everything up and try it out just to make sure it worked, that they ended up having to create like a local server, like right there on site.
Which they should have done at the beginning, because it's a LAN. It's not friggin', this isn't distributed. Like the idea that they were all... Anyway, yes, this is what happens when you fire your esports division and then put on esports events. $
1 million tournament.
Yeah, you look like idiots, and unfortunately, they did. And and again, this goes to the corporate level of like, when you have a big corporation that only cares about returns, snapped up by another corporation that's even bigger. And they are trying to reconcile the two, because look, and this is something I understand. I've been in the business world long enough. I know how this works. I've seen it. I've been a part of it on multiple different ends. When you buy a company and you bring it into your company, you have overlap, right? And a lot of times it takes some time to sort through what parts of that overlap is, who's good, who's there just filling seats at the end of the day when their jobs are overlapped. And, unfortunately people tend to be released, and that is just business. It is in every tech takeover, buyout, whatever, since the beginning of the tech industry. It's always worked this way, and it always will. Unfortunately, when the bean counters are making the beans count, and they're not deeply integrated into how systems work, they'll cut loose groups that they don't need to, right, or that they shouldn't. And unfortunately, I do think that they cut loose too much of the esports division. Was it last year, right?
No, they just did it right before the CDL champs.
Yeah, right before CDL.
Like within a month or two, I thought. Or maybe even a month or two before the season started.
I think it was the season started. I think. And so, given that World Series of Warzone is not, CDL is very structured. I can imagine that it is easier to keep a CDL machine going because they know how to do it, right?
Less people in the lobbies. You don't have as many disconnects, none of that stuff. Whereas this, you did.
This is a different beast. And when you don't have the people that are familiar and used to doing this, then you get into problems of the CDL is not going to or the World Series of Warzone. It's just not going to run smoothly. And that's exactly what we had, right? Hour-long delays between matches, disconnects. The text came over and reset somebody's computer mid-game, right? And they didn't reset the game. They didn't restart the game.
No, but then Soka had some audio issues, and they did reset it then.
No bias there, right?
Yeah, no, but yeah, it's crazy.
But it's one of those things of unfortunately, when you have an organization like Microsoft acquiring an organization like Activision, there's just too many overlaps to keep everybody. And then the people that make the decisions, really, they don't know enough about what they're getting rid of for them to do it accurately. And I think the World Series of Warzone definitely suffered from that. So, that's frustrating. That was frustrating for me to see, especially since last year in London, it ran so smooth, if you remember.
It was very smooth. And, the other thing I do want to say, and big shout out to the Pulse Check and specifically Hector. He's done a lot for Warzone comp scene, hosting tournaments and scrims and things like that. I almost feel like they should really make a bigger effort to get him and his team involved, because obviously it's not the same scale, right? But their production value is really, really good. On the Pulse Check podcast and, just the way everything operates. And I think that it's something that he cares about. So it's something I think he would make a huge effort to do very well at and to be a good steward of. So big shout out to those guys. But so let's talk about a couple things from the tournament. First and foremost, GG's to the winners. Team Falcons, they won $300,000.
Yep.
Big congratulations to Team Codmunity, which is owned by the Codmunity Warzone Loadout app, and our buddy Alex. Their team got second for $160,000.
Yeah, that was a great. If you missed it last year, we had Alex on the podcast. We had a great episode, a great conversation with him. I would like to reach out to him and see if we can have him back and just kind of catch up and I want to hear his thoughts on doing this and having a team in Warzone and having them do so well. I think that they did phenomenal. It's second best in the world. Can't knock that. And then of course we have our other friends, team involved. Rob had two teams in there, right? Waldo was on one.
Yeah,
and did well.
Yeah, they did okay, but the third place team was Team Aiden. That was with the homie DJ Moss, Aiden and Smith. They did well, but the surprising teams to me, the other two, was FaZe and FaZe Black. FaZe had Sage, Adrian, and Swag. And I'm going to go over some individual numbers here in just a little bit to kind of discuss that and why that was all surprising. And then FaZe Black was flanked, Blast, and Gabe Kuhn, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but so the two that surprised me the most, because I really thought Omit NA was going to be in the top five at least. I really thought they were going to be up there, and I thought maybe even FIFA Kills team might make a run at it. But we're already having some roster movement, by the way. I don't know if you've seen that. And upon winning, as of before the tournament, there was speculation that Diaz Biffle was gonna retire. Crazy talking about retiring at 21. But evidently he has decided to change his mind. So if SSD's together again next year,
team to beat, obviously.
Yeah, they are going to be the team to beat. And it's funny, they got to match point in this tournament, right? Like they get to match point. No team dropped on them at pop-off to keep them from winning the tournament. Not a single one. But I mean, we talked about this last week too.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they dropped on them or not, really, because they're going to get fucking rinsed. So, it just is what it is. Those boys are good. They really are. And, speaking of our friends at Team Evolve, they had a couple, so Colony and Waldo were on their team did pretty decent. I think they got like 11th in the tournament, something like that. And
I forget off the top of my head.
I'm not sure where Slide ended up, but I know that I think he had a couple moments that were pretty good in the tournament. But individually, though, so Diaz Biffle is just the greatest Warzone player ever. He just is. So his KD for the tournament, okay, I'll tell you what his KD for the tournament was, but then I want to tell you what it was for the second day alone. His KD for the tournament was 4.63 in a lobby with those demons. The next highest KD was Aiden, who balled out at 2.6. The funny thing is Biffle isn't even supposed to be. He's the support player. Play his life, stay alive, get your regains, those kind of things. Shifty's the Slayer. Soka was the IGL. And Biffle just absolutely fucking dominated this tournament. He dominated last year, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Dongi from COD Munity was third at 2.59. Shifty, 2.42. Sage, who played with those guys last year, was at 2.3. Soka at 2.3. And then, DJ played pretty good. He had a 1.31. He was in the top 30 of all the players in that competition. And, Swag did pretty good, too. Let me see, where was Swag? Waldo had a 1.62, Colony a 1.7. I mean, most of basically it was anything from 56 and above had over a 1. Brax was even. Slide was just above even. Breadman a 1.13. That team really struggled too, by the way.
Yeah.
I just felt like they couldn't really get anything going.
I didn't, obviously I was at the water park, so my ability to watch games was limited. But, from the games that I did watch, I feel like, and this is one of those things I've said it before, Warzone doesn't have a great comp scene, right? We act like we do. One. We don't have a great one. We have a lot of individuals who like to play, but they spend a lot of time doing pubs and doing kill races and doing all of the little things. And it's not, I look at the CDL, right? The CDL has a competitive circuit, right? You have a lot of events. You have a lot of specific training. It goes for months and months. And in the off season, they're working on it. They're not stomping pubs, right, and making their living, getting their CCV up and getting subs. They're working on training to play the next year. And I think that's something that the Warzone is missing, right? The Pulse Check, they ran a lot of customs, and those customs, we remarked on this repeatedly, they didn't fill. They weren't filling customs leading up to the World Series of Warzone.
Because teams didn't want to scrim. There were some teams that couldn't really scrim a whole lot.
Well, how are you going to, how do you have a comp scene that only plays once a year, right? How is that?
Well, they had some big tournaments.
You can have one-off tournaments here and there, but it's like, it's not a circuit. It's not a series. It's not a,
it's not organized like that.
It's not organized, right? And these teams are thrown together. How many of those teams were thrown together in the weeks between when it was announced and when it started, when calls started?
Well, nobody knew. Nobody knew. I mean, I know DJ ended up switching up teams too. They switched out Sage for Soka on SSD, and there were a couple people that got to end up competing because, unfortunately, a couple members, as we mentioned last week, of teams didn't get to get their visas approved. But
which is crazy,
yeah,
in and of itself.
Well, that was more on Activision. That was on Call of Duty for not announcing.
But this is something that, like, you look at, I'm going to compare it to the CDL, right? Like, the CDL is well organized, and it has these teams, and you look at other sports teams that are popular, and you look at how they're organized, right? They're an organization. There's an organization, and it's not just it's not just a once-off sponsor or like a catchy team name. It's like, the Falcons are they're sponsored by the UAE, right?
I thought it was Saudi
something
Arabian.
like that. I forget.
I could be wrong.
Somebody's in charge. I mean, you have Community sponsoring a team, right? You have these groups
Cloud9
sponsoring a team. Well, FaZe, right, had two of them. Involved had two of them.
Omit had teams.
They should be having these teams. They should be putting their teams for next year together by Christmas, right? And they should
probably are.
And they should be running it, and there should be events that COD hosts that aren't this big, that aren't as put together, but they should still be there, and it should be like lead up to it. You should probably have to play X number of events to even like have a shot, right? Like,
there was a great tweet like that.
Something. You have to have something organized that gets people invested in year round, right? Otherwise, you end up with basically a high caliber pub lobby, which is what we had, right? You had a couple of good players in a pool of players that weren't as good, and no one knew what the heck to do because nobody was, they haven't sat down and like practiced this stuff. And you could tell by the way that they didn't chow them at Pop-Off, right?
Well, and so basically the complaint about that was, though, is that the bottom 20 teams, because the top 20 were in money. So you don't want to screw your placement up. Like, if you're in top 20, you want to just stay steady, right? Like, as much as you can. Like, especially, like, look at the top 5. The second place team got 160, and then DJ and them got $100,000. Like, when there's that much money on the line, you can't just fucking full send SSD over at Pop-Off. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
you shouldn't.
But just like, so so I forget who it was. Was it Goj that listed out the KDs of every player in the tournament, right?
That's whose tweet I was reading off of.
Yeah, ranging from 4.67 at the top,
4.63,
4.63 at the top to 0.2 at the bottom. You want to know what that distribution looks like? A friggin' pubs lobby.
That guy's a cheater, though, dude. From what I understand, he's been accused of cheating, and actually, on the pulse check, they called that. They specifically called that was going to happen.
And hopefully he gets kicked out and never gets to play again. But he's not alone at the bottom. The bottom 5 are like under 0.3, like 0.3, 0.32, something like that. There's a lot of really bad KDs at the bottom. There's a lot of people that showed up and did not perform well. And as a result, it is glaringly obvious that even at this high level, that there are exceptional players and there are players that are not exceptional, right? And the problem so here's the problem, right? Like, when you look at the distribution of KD, like, it doesn't read like a competitive, a really competitive league, right? I compared that to this season's Warzone or the CDL, right? You look at the competitors in the CDL and you look at the really, really bad competitors, and they're like a 0.73 for the season.
Swag was a 1.36, dude. Joe Woe was a 0.61. Husker's a 1.06. Yeah. So some of the bigger creators that do compete, a couple of them did decent. I think, again, love Joe, but he struggles on LAN against these guys.
Because he's a creator. He's out there.
That is what it
He's
is.
out there. He's out there two boxing in the lobbies and getting his content, which is great. Look, I don't want to knock anybody who like their role in life, their job is to create content, right? I mean there's definitely there's a huge place for that, and there's no problem with that. To me, the problem is not that they're creating content; it's that they're then stepping up into these competitive scenarios where they're not trained for this. They're not practicing this, right? They're still out spending their days. You go live, right? Like they're spending their days doing the same old, and then they hop in and play Warzone,
Oh,
competitively. And it's just that's not the mentality of like a team that wants to win, right? They're just there to have fun.
I
Which,
know that Omit NA, and I also know DJ and Aiden's team. Those guys were scrimming every fucking day for at least the last month I can think of, with very few days missed. They competed in every tournament. DJ and them even won a tournament or two, if I remember correctly, but most were won by SSD. There were some that didn't want to scrim. And, I think the results speak for themselves. You could tell who was putting in the time and in the work. Some just did VOD review, which, that's a way to get better too. So I don't know. I think that, somebody did put, actually not, I think I know, somebody put out a tweet earlier today about, exactly what you're talking about having like, maybe you could even maybe structure it like the CDL with the majors and the qualifiers and the majors, with everything leading up to the World Series of Warzone. And, if you place a certain amount of, top fives, throughout the year, you're guaranteed a spot in Warzone, World Series of Warzone, something like that. I don't know how it would work, dude. That's making my brain hurt thinking about it. But
I mean, that's why there should be a department of people that get paid for this, right?
Yeah. I wonder what they're doing now.
I don't know. Hopefully, probably not getting laid off over this.
Yeah, but, no shit.
It was disappointing to see that there was such a percentage of the player, of the player base that came to this tournament that just were not ready. They were not, whether they weren't ready, whether they weren't skillful enough. I don't know what it is, but it was like a third plus just might as well have not shown up. And it's hard to, it's hard to sit here and say like, this was a really well, and I compare that to the CDL, right? Where it's like, you don't have many teams that just decide not to show up. Even the bottom player is a 0.73, right? They're doing more in their team scenario. And this was to be clear, like, there's different game modes and there's a lot that goes into it. So it's kind of it's a little bit of a fuzzy number, but the reality is if you're putting up a 0.73 versus like a 0.3, right? Let's just exclude the cheater at 0.2, but a 0.3, like multiple players at that bottom level. I mean, they're just feeder players. You might as well just put bots in at that point.
It's just like, no, I mean, come on, man. Like, it's just like that in anything else, any other sports league or whatever. There's always going to be top tier talent and there's going to be bottom tier talent and bottom tier performances. Obviously the cheater can kiss my ass. I don't really give a shit. But the rest, I mean, I'm not going to say shit about it too much because they're competing in a lobby with the best players in the world. Like 120 of the best players in the world, ideally, made that tournament and were playing. They were the best during the qualifiers anyway. And so I don't know. I'm not going to fault anybody for not, overly, just performing to a high level against other high levels. Somebody has to be at the bottom, dude.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you have to be at the bottom, but it's like you have to be at the bottom, but you have to show up. You have to be capable of playing at that level. And I think that's the problem, is that there's a huge chunk of those people that aren't capable of playing it at a high level because they just got mopped. They couldn't do anything. And that I think is where the problem is, not in, and a lot of that has to do with there's no structure. There's no competitive, season to this. There's no, the screening process, obviously people who were sauced can actually, could get in and play on LAN. Right. And so I think there's this whole system that is not there to support this and really bring people up to a high enough level. Like it's just, and the problem is it makes the game less interesting because you have players that you have teams at the bottom who don't even know how to challenge teams at the top, and you have teams, at the teams at the top that just are so dominant that they can just do whatever they want, and it there was never a point, I don't think, in the tournament where the result of this was in doubt, right? The inevitability of it was in doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I pretty much knew SSD was going to win. I hoped some other teams would make a run, and a couple did. Community's team did, and Aiden's team did. They were, they were within striking distance. I don't know that they got to match point.
I don't believe
no, they didn't. But they placed second and third, so that was pretty awesome, and I'm happy for those guys. You want to know some fun facts? I got this from Dandro, one of the casters. So the highest kill game in this tournament was 12 by Diaz, Biffle, and Dongi. The most deaths in the game was 6. God damn, that feels like one of my matches. Was Empathy and number 4 FPS and Dongi. Mm-hmm. The most damage was 67.96 from Dongi. Most assists in the game, 14 for Biffle. Highest individual KD game, 13, Biffle. And largest kill streak was Soka and Ilgui at 12. And then most accurate in the game was Baba Huff at 75%. He hit 12 of 16 shots he fired.
12 of 16 shots. Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it was a cool tournament. And I will say, too, the production on and just the flow of games on day 2 was significantly better. I don't know that there was really a whole lot of issues on day 2, at least not from a viewing standpoint too much. Good. So day 2 went smoothly. The championship, again, GG's to SSD. Yep. And the rest of the top 5. But, so that's got to wait another year for the World Series of Warzone, man.
Yeah, let's hope it keeps going. Really hope that they didn't consider this one and done. That would be utterly disappointing.
So, hang on, I got to tell you this. And this will actually lead us into the next thing. So, I saw on some of the posts, like some of the tweets, COD Watchdogs, right? He's posted, he's like, yeah, it's a tournament for like aim assist or whatever. I'm like, I'd see that shit and just randomly start laughing because like he wasn't the only one doing it. So that's why it's funny that, he was posting that or whatever. And then this week we're, first with the beta, the Black Ops 6 beta, they adjusted some of the aim assist, 2.8 meters and in. And then that deal with the, you had a good write-up about that, the Fortnite.
Oh, yeah, Fortnite. Released today, they just announced that they've reworked their aim assist. So they're using what's called human aim assist, I think is the human-like aim assist. Is that
it was human-like.
It's a really interesting idea. And it's one of those things that I don't disagree with it. Like, whenever you hear the phrase nerf aim assist, right? I get PTSD from when I was, this is what I wrote about when I was back in college. My girlfriend at the time, she was a big gamer, and we would play, when we were home, we were both from the same area. When we were home, we would play at her place, and she had a whole multi-computer LAN setup, so we get to, we'd just sit there and play on LAN. And we were about even, right? She would edge it out a little bit here and there, but it's like, we were usually within 2 or 3 kills of each other at the end of the day. Like, it wasn't like nobody ran away with it. When we were, when we played at school, all we had is my PS. I had a PS2. We didn't have any computers or anything like that. So what was it? The PS2 could actually support split screen cross input play. So you could have, one of us on a mouse and keyboard and one of us on the controller. Now, back in that day, aim assist wasn't like a big thing. There wasn't a lot of aim assist in games. right? And it wasn't necessary because everybody was on controller. Everybody was, had all the same disadvantages that they do today. And so, we were starting to get to some of the slow down aim assist a little bit, but there wasn't a lot of aim assist, right? So you were pretty wild on the sticks. And we would play, and she never grew up playing controller. So, I played both inputs. So she would usually play mouse and key, and I would play controller. And the problem is that when you have unassisted controller and mouse and key, there's no point in even playing because the mouse and key will win every gunfight. It is just a superior input for accuracy, for movement, for the ability to rotate and have control over your character versus controller, which is sluggish and all over the place. And it would be blowouts like 30-40 to 1, 30-40 to 2 level blowouts. Like that's how much of a difference unassisted controller and keyboard and mouse is. And so we, when they announced it, and I hear nerf aim assist, like I go back to that of like, God, it's just gonna make controller utterly useless is my first instinct, obviously. But it was a tweet by one of the directors or executive producers over at Fortnite. So this was Fortnite's kind of goal with this, is that they wanted to rework aim assist. And so what they called it is their human-like aim assist. And so to avoid, for me, right, when I hear we're going to nerf aim assisting, like get rid of aim assist, I'm like, I go back to these PTSD of like, well, then there's no point in playing controller. You just might as well throw them all in the trash, which I don't love because I'm sponsored by Aim Controller and I love those guys. So I want controllers to be healthy and long lived. But reading through, so this guy's name is Jib Smart. He is actually he had a great post. He's a senior dev at Fortnite, and his and this is his baby, right? This is one of the projects that he was heading on, and so he had a really good series of tweets about the topic. And basically what this boils down to is, aim assist is considered OP. Not because it isn't needed to balance the two inputs, but it is because it is inhuman in how fast it balances it. And in my opinion, and opinion of many others, is there's a stickiness to it, right? So for me, I notice it in the stickiness. And so Call of Duty has always kind of had this rotational aim assist where, you can watch. I've done videos on it. Hexsmith's done extensive videos on it. So if you don't follow him, please do. He does a great job of demonstrating how it works and what it does. But basically, when you are within the aim assist bubble, the computer will track along with you, and it, especially when you change directions or you move up or down, you jump or you lay down, that sort of thing, the aim assist will follows you along. And so when you have aim assist like that, and it stays on your character model, when people get used to aim assist, right, and they learn how to use it properly, or abuse it, as they say, it's very difficult to get away, right? Your survivability goes through the floor when aim assist is too locked on. And so the big problem that you run into when you have aim assist like that is that for good players, they're going to abuse the heck out of it, but they're also going to be very high skilled, so they're not going to make a lot of the mistakes. Their tracking and stuff will be very good. What you get is you get kind of that like mid-level player, kind of like you and I are probably at the bottom of that mid-level, and then there's, it goes up to, we know some people that are probably at the higher end of that, what I'll call the mid-level, where you lean on aim assist a lot more than you lean on your skill. And the problem is when you are in that boat is, you really your game elevates because you're able to beam players and you're able to kind of like lock onto them and you really track them really well. Unfortunately, if you're a player like lower skilled player, you run into the problem of you're getting beamed and you can't get away, right? So most of the time it's very hard to break aim assist right now. And I think that's one of the things that this reaction time is really problematic, right? So aim assist will follow you. If you run right and then you stop and you turn around and you go the other direction, the reaction is instant, right? And this is kind of what this guy talks about in his post. Is he talks about how the aim assist, it is such an instant reaction, and it's inhuman in how fast it reacts, right? And the problem, and we've talked about this previously, when we've talked about aim assist and how the nerf is probably going to be a net positive at the end of the day for most players, right? In terms of survivability, because someone's not going to beam you as reliably as they do today. And so when you have this conversation about aim assist and what we need to do to make aim assist better for everybody, right? You have to be able to break it, right? There has to be a way to get out of that aim assist lock, right? Where somebody's beaming you, and it doesn't matter if you run right or you run left or you slide cancel or you bunny hop, you're still getting obliterated, right? We got to get rid of that, right? And at least tone that down so it's like you're required to physically track somebody as they do that. And what is really going to affect is kind of that middle class, a middle tier of players, right? Like I mentioned, you at the top, you and I at the bottom, and some of our friends at the top, where they're relying on the mechanical aspects of aim assist to help them land kills versus being able to just beam it with raw skill like a mouse and key player would. And we have Caps Lock is one of the guys that probably could do that. If he turns off aim assist, he's probably not going to be as detrimental. It's not going to be as devastating to his game as it is to like you and me, right? And so players like that, they're going to stay at the top, at the high level. But I think we need to, if we bring the speed or the accuracy of players down a little bit across the board, bad players are still going to miss all their shots because they don't use they don't use rotationally, the aim assist in the same way, right? That good players do, and so they're going to actually survive more gunfights, whether they get a kill or not out of it. They're going to survive it because they can get behind cover. They can break aim assist if they're quick enough, and that's an easier thing to do if aim assist it has a more human-like reaction time, right? So if you're able to cut left and cut right, for example, and the aim assist doesn't automatically correct for that and follow along, you're in a better spot than you were today in Call of Duty specifically. Reading through his discussion on it, it's really interesting to hear him articulate this issue and how the developers kind of go after it. And so I think it's going to be an interesting experiment to see if they're able to tackle this. Because if they are, they're going to set the gold standard for how aim assist should work, right? Because you shouldn't exclude one input from the game completely, right? By way of, having aim assist be so overpowered that mouse and key doesn't have a place in the game. But you can't get rid of aim assist to the point that controller doesn't have a place in the game, right? So trying to find the perfect balance, it isn't something that I think is going to be possible, but if you can get it close enough, then it'll work, right? I mean, you did that for a while, right? You were running the mouse and key.
Yeah, I was running honestly, I was running mouse and key for 4 months. I think I picked it up pretty well after about the first month of doing it, on my own. My PR with mouse and key was 14. I just hit my PR at 15, the week ago or a few weeks ago or whatever on this map. So on controller, no less. Mm-hmm. I've had more double-digit games on controller and higher damage games on controller than I did on mouse and key. It is a harder input. I wanted to learn it because I felt like it was a challenge. But it's silly to me, and we've talked about this before, and I don't know if you saw my tweet, but to use the best players in the world as justification for or against the aim assist or in the aim assist argument is just stupid. It just is, because those guys, it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what. Brax turned off his aim assist and went and shit on people. So I can't remember who it was, but he did it publicly too. So let's tap the brakes on that. I'm just happy that my friends that are on mouse and key that I've listened to their complaints, and I disagreed with them early on because I was only looking at it from a lens of myself, right? Like I'm
Right.
on controller. But then once I took time to learn the input and everything like that, I will 100% tell you it's not a fair. It's not if you're just going simply input to input, it's not anywhere close to being fair.
No,
In
it's not.
most situations. So to get something a little more balanced that actually still requires a little bit of skill to do, I'm happy about that because I want a little bit of a higher skill gap if I'm being honest, and I feel like this is going to create one.
Yeah, well, and it's not just having a skill gap; it's having like it's where the skill is located. Right now, I mean, look, right now in gunfights, the skill is can you master recoil, which is damn near non-existent in today's Call of Duty. I mean, even at least in Warzone 1, you had guns that were high skill guns, right? They had wild recoil patterns.
Give me
And
my AMAX back, damn it.
the Cold War K, you had the AMAX, you had the VP-44 or something like that, right? It was almost like a horizontal recoil pattern, but it killed so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And they were difficult guns to master to where you could be very effective with them. And we don't even have that anymore. The recoil on every gun is all the same. It's all boring. They've tried to create difficulty by making the recoil patterns random, right? Which just makes it a pain in the butt for everybody to use. It just negatively affects everybody, and it doesn't change anything. And the reality is, the people that do well that aren't pro level, they do well because they're able to utilize the mechanics of aim assist and let the mechanics of aim assist do a lot of the heavy lifting for them, right?
I've been focusing on it more.
Sure, you should be, because it's it's like slide canceling was in Modern Warfare 2019. It's just what you should, it's a part of the game that's there, and you should use it to your advantage. And my point is that they should take that advantage and they should reduce it so that you need your skill to create the skill gap. The skill should be your ability to track and aim, and not your ability to, for example, hold 5% left on your left stick.
I changed up my dead zones. I can't remember exactly what I changed them to. I'd have to look at them, but I changed up my dead zones because I do have a little bit of stick drift, and I changed the optic on that STG 44 using the SZ recharge optic. I've beamed more people out of the sky in the last 4 days than probably since I've started playing this game.
Great.
Yeah, no, it's my. I was telling Drade yesterday. I feel like I found my shot finally. Like, it only took a fucking year, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find your shot, and you have to find guns, I think, that are comfortable for you to really be able to focus on other things besides controlling recoil. I know a lot of folks, they've been using guns that I watch them play, and I'm not entirely. It's like people I've played with, and I watch them play, and I'm like, I'm not entirely sure you feel comfortable with that gun, the way that you're using it. But it's really, so this aim assist change in Fortnite is going to be interesting. And Fortnite's a very mobile-based game, right? There's a lot of movement to it. So it's going to really, I think, exacerbate how much movement is important to Fortnite. And look, I don't play build. I'm not going to talk about build mode because
I can't stand that mode. Build either, bro.
But just in terms of like the gunfighting, right? So just in terms of being in Fortnite, the no build Fortnite mode, it is a very different mode, or the gunfights. It's going to be very different if it's not tracking players as they move around as much, right? Because that was such a big the last year when I was playing it for that week or so, that was almost immediately obvious, right? Anybody who was jumping or bouncing around was much harder to hit, but the aim assist could still track it. Like, you could still get somebody a beam in that game as long as you can control your gun, no matter what they were doing. Like, if you caught them in the flat, like, you had a really good chance of getting the kill. And I think it's going to change things up. I think that's where they hope to change things up, where it's like somebody who has better movement has the ability to break away and get clear of somebody's aim without hopefully disrupting the ability to keep up with the game, with the mouse and key players.
I think for Call of Duty, the Omni movement's going to be a good experiment for that, and with their adjustment, I think if we're looking at it in terms of Call of Duty, we're going to find out a lot. I think about how that's going to work over the next year, not just in multiplayer, but into Warzone 2.
Yeah,
into Warzone also, not Warzone 2. I don't want to talk about Warzone 2
Let's not go back. Let's not roll backwards. But I think it's if you remember back to when Modern Warfare or when Black Ops 6 came out, and we discovered that, somebody mentioned on JGOT's post that they one of the senior some senior level, I forget his name, mentioned that they made changes to aim assist and that they would talk more about it later. We haven't heard that yet, so I'm curious to see what they've done. Now, my personal feeling, based on kind of trying to test and mess around with it and comparing and going back and forth between Black Ops multiplayer and MW3's multiplayer, is the movement definitely seemed to break aim assist more and break that. And I've talked about this before. There's the we call it the stickiness, right? That's the phrase you hear a lot of times, which is the ability for the crosshair to just stay on somebody no matter what they're doing. And this is one thing that neither myself nor Hex Smith or anybody else that I've seen has a good way of testing. Like, how do you test stickiness? And I don't know. I don't have a test for it yet. I haven't been able to figure that out, how to reliably tell this. So there's a lot of this is by feel. But I worked hard to pay attention to that and to capture moments on film that seemed to mirror this, and I was able to catch a lot of it where using the Omni movement didn't seem to hold the crosshairs on somebody as well. Like if I was running and somebody was shooting me and I would dolphin dive, they would a lot of times miss shots as a result, right? It doesn't track me all the way through. If you go back to Modern Warfare 2 or Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer, if you dolphin dive, they still track you, right? All the way till you flopped on the ground, and then in the time it takes you to get up, you're dead. There are many, many instances in which people slid or dove, and the crosshairs did not track them down in that motion. Very similar to how right now, if you drop shot, aim assist doesn't track the drop shot. So if you are, if somebody is shooting you and you hit that drop shot and they aren't ready for it, you're close enough to them, or they just generally aren't prepared for that, the crosshairs don't follow you down, right? Mm-hmm. So you will, as long as, if you're like me, then they're shooting chest, and when you drop shot, you just put your head right in the crosshairs and you die faster anyways. But for other people that, if they're going for headshots and you drop shot, they're going to miss shots. And so it does happen. It can be advantaged. And I feel like that is more prevalent in the Omni movement, which I hope to hear that they confirm that, because that would be a big change to how aim assist works now versus how it's worked in the past, which I think, again, in line with Fortnite, in line with, I think Apex just did some adjustments to theirs as well.
For PC players, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in line to some, and with some of these other games that have, kind of started to take a balanced approach to aim assist. I think that's a net positive at the end of the day, if it's true, right?
Balance is great.
Balance is great, and survivability. And I think that's the thing that people you don't think about it. You don't think about the defensive aspects of this game, right? You think about how well can I hit my target? How well can I hit my shots? And there's skill in that, right? And so a lot of people are benefiting without developing the real skill to continually hit their shots when they're in a gunfight, versus when you have the defensive aspect of the game where I'm getting shot, I need to get away. What can I do? Right now, the answer is I better find a tree or a building to get behind, and I'll probably die behind it anyways, because it's either going to be wall banged or the netcode sucks, or the servers are bad. Versus right now, when you have the ability to break aim assist, you can actually evade and escape on your own, right? So if you're in the flat, you have a chance to evade and escape and survive the gunfight longer, or at least survive long enough, maybe for your teammates to help you out, for you to get to cover, something like that.
That's why there's a smoke meta.
Yeah, and smoke eliminates aim assist, right?
Yeah.
So that's why smokes are so prevalent. I would love to see smokes just nerfed because it's so obnoxious. Just I'm so tired of them.
Well, I think next year will be different.
2 years.
With the
2 years
backpack.
of nothing but smokes. Let's go back to stims.
Well, honestly, I don't want to see the stims make a comeback either because that shit broke the game.
I like stims
several times. But no, I'm just happy that it's moving in the right direction and that these studios are starting to actually address the issue, and just trying to make it fair for everyone. Fair doesn't mean just for controller players. Fair is for everyone. It doesn't matter whether your input or not. Everybody knows that it's not been fair or on even playing field. Especially when you're talking computer, PC to PC, mouse and key on PC to controller to PC, right? Like it's just, it needed to be addressed, and I'm glad that they are, and I'm glad to see my mouse and key homies happy, man.
Happy-ish. We'll see. I mean, and again, this all. I mean, I haven't played it yet. I haven't seen any reports. I've just seen the notes that they put up. So, it'll probably take some time for that to really kind of what they've changed to really kind of bubble up and become obvious about what's happening. And so I hope we see that in the next week or so. Hopefully next time we record, we'll have a good, a good report of like, hey, in Fortnite, this is better. I am going to try and carve out some time once this Halloween event kind of, dies off and becomes a little stale before they launch Black Ops 6. Probably going to carve some time out to go try some of the Fortnite and see how well it does, and how it feels compared to previous to the previous one.
Dude, I don't know. I think I'm just going to continue to grind, man. I just want to grind the game out until the next one comes.
I mean, the problem is, what are you grinding for?
I'm just grinding, trying to get more wins, more kills, that kind of stuff. Like, just, I've been having a good time playing the game, and in large part, it's the way that we're able to play lately. Doing the contracts and always having a shitload of money, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so anyway, I think that's pretty awesome. I'm happy for the mouse and key people.
Yeah.
Hopefully
it'll be good for everybody. I am very curious to see how that works and how it affects Fortnite build, because I mean Fortnite build is just dominated by mouse and key, and so I feel like Fortnite build, like the controller players in build mode are just going to be driven out of it completely with this.
Yeah.
Personally, we'll see. I mean, again, I'm going to put it up with the we'll see. Fortnite's kind of its own beast, so it's going to depend on how they implement it and how it's received by their community. But overall, I think most people are pretty positive about it. I think definitely saw some haters, but it seemed a lot of positivity. I think a lot of people recognize that it is overpowered, and that again, I think that there's that survivability aspect of gunfights where it's like you don't get to make a mistake, especially at higher levels. Because in part, aim assist, people that really know how to use aim assist, they really know how to use it, and they just don't miss very much.
It's true. I don't know if you saw my tweet, but Aracita beamed my ass off of that zip line last night at Pop Off. She's a mod for DJ too.
Stop challenging Pop Off. What do you think you are,
dude,
Biffle?
Like I said in my tweet, I had just got out of the gulag. I was minding my business. I was trying to regain and get my team back, and yeah, I hop on the zip line and she just fucking, and she used aim assist. I mean, that wasn't the only reason why, but
I had the last ranked game that I played. I posted the stats, but you know what? I wiped an entire team. I was on the boat over by Control, and some of the loadouts were dropped there, and there's that zip line, and I just literally one mag, and all four of them dropped in, grabbed their loadout, and hopped the zip line one after the other, and I took every single one of them down before they got to the top of the zip line. There must have been a pile of bodies on their loot. So they tried to do it, and I'm like, why? But zip lines are risk and reward, right?
They are. I'm going to grab a drink real quick.
Yeah.
What do you think about season 6?
Season 6 is going to be interesting. They just released the Black Cell information, so I was going through that earlier, and they've got they're kind of doing a weird thing where they're this year a lot of the characters are faded out. They're like black and white, like they're grayscale. Um, they got the Don't Call Me Michael Myers guy looks exactly the same, but the Farah's faded out. They had a faded out. There was a Markov and somebody else. I don't know who this person is. But they have some interesting ones. So it's going to be an interesting, some of the Black Cell options are pretty cool. The guns are interesting. The roadmap looks okay. They don't have a lot of I don't know, looking through some of the blueprints you can unlock. None of them seem amazing. Or if they do seem cool, they're for guns that I don't think are any good. So they'll never be used. I do like the one blueprint they have for the BP-50. Hopefully they don't nerf that into oblivion. But otherwise, it's just going to be an interesting, it's an interesting set of bundles. There are Vault Edition stuff is all great. But overall, it's we're getting into the haunting season, and I think this is one of those areas where they've really made. I'm sure it's a tactical decision, but I don't know if it's a good tactical decision, right? We've got 6 different versions of Shipment coming out, so that'll be a 24/7 playlist for at least a while. Shipment rotation or some bullshit.
Jesus, it's like spawn, die. I turn into fucking Phase Jev on that map, bro.
Yeah. But. We don't know if they're going to continue this, but right now, the haunting is supposed to run out before Halloween. Like, what is up with that? I know it's a strategic point to get everybody, to not take away from the Modern Warfare or the Black Ops 6 launch, but can we not, do this, please?
I think they should have run it right up to a week before launch. They're not giving us campaign, early access. Yeah. So they should have done that. I think season 6 is going to be kind of one of the more weak seasons that we've had. Just in general. Mm-hmm. I know there's some cool operators in there. Obviously, Michael Myers and
have you seen the 3-headed ghost and the other guy with the clown on his back?
Yeah,
that's going to be the most frustrating players to face because you're going to shoot them and you're not going to score their hitbox.
Yeah, I saw a tweet somebody was saying the hitbox on this.
J-God pointed that out. But yeah, and they've had other, characters that have that problem, right? Where it's like there are elements of that character that aren't like that extend beyond the hitbox. So especially sniping, right? The 3-headed ghost. It's like which head do you shoot? It's got to be the most frustrating. It's gonna be super frustrating, and it's gonna be kind of like the Groot skin last year, if you remember, which is really hard to see.
Yeah,
and that was so frustrating for a lot of people. But at the same time, it's like there were other skins that were just like that were physically they were wearing things, and it's like what they were wearing was not part of the hitbox. And so you would, I just remember losing gunfights because I'm hitting the character model and it does nothing, right?
Well, that was the old thing. So I can remember specifically in Blackout, I chose to use Seraph as my operator of choice because she was a slender female, shorter operator, and I felt like her hitbox was a lot smaller. That's what people used to do, and I guess they kind of somewhere along the way addressed that to make it where that doesn't matter what size operator you have, that they all have the same kind of hitbox.
Yes. But now it's like if you're a bigger character, in some ways, and so I've had this happen before where it's like I play in July, I play with the Vacation Santa one, right? And he's got the shark on his back, and the shark's not part of the hitbox, depending on what angle you're at. But I've been in the gulag where I can see in the kill cam that gives away where I am because it sticks out where I don't expect it to. And so we've had scenarios where larger character models, present themselves slightly faster for everyone to see. But in this case, I don't know. It's it's going to be interesting to see how it plays because there's 3 heads. Which one do you shoot? And in the middle of a fight, I think people are going to start hitting the wrong head and getting pissed off that they're not getting not even getting hit markers when they're landing a shot on the head, but it's just not the right one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how those operators play out. I gotta miss the first week of it, which
you're gonna be gone.
Yeah, which kind of sucks. But like I said the other day, if the haunting event is only on Resurgence, I probably won't play a single second of it. I'm just not going to.
You should play a little bit of it just to get used to just to get content for us to talk about.
Fuck. Damn it, man.
I'm gonna make you do it.
Probably, yeah. Maybe I guess I will play a couple matches. I just don't have a lot of patience for that shit anymore. It's just not my mode, man. It isn't.
Yeah, understandable.
By the way, let me backtrack a second. Did you see in the World Series of Warzone that somebody had 3 gulag shots in a row?
Yes. I think that happened more than once, right?
Is that not excessive? Like, how many chances you need, bro?
What was it? Because it was a second chance gulag, right? And was there a token involved, like a gulag token or something?
No, I've had the glitch where I've had three back to back gulag.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Happens.
In fact, it tried to do it to me again some other time, and I was like pissed off already. So I was like, "Fuck you!" I just left the match. I was like, "I'm not fucking doing this shit anymore." I just got shit on in here 2 times. Why the fuck do I want to make it 3? And it's like you end up going from like 0 deaths to like 4 in about 60 seconds, or to 3 in about 60 seconds, and it's like,
yeah. When it doesn't work, it's not ideal. It's not great. So season 6 will be out. It'll be an interesting season. And then it's not going to be, I just don't think it's going to be there's not a lot of meat to it compared to like previous years. And I think that's the biggest problem with this season, butting up against the next game, right? They're not giving it the full thing. We've heard that they pulled a lot of multiplayer maps for next year so that, we're not getting a lot of new maps. We're getting variants of existing maps. There's not a lot of weaponry to unlock this year. Not that it's going to carry over to multiplayer next year anyways, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, haunting doesn't even run through Halloween. I'm generally disappointed a little bit, and I haven't been disappointed this year, especially in the multiplayer side of it.
Yeah,
so that's a new one for me. But we'll see.
You know what? I think I'll be playing a lot of multiplayer between now and then too, just because I do like the multiplayer. Like we said last episode, like this year should be known as the year that Sledgehammer fucking got Call of Duty back on track and made it semi-fun again.
Well, this is the first year. This is the first year in the Warzone era of Call of Duty that I will log significantly more time in multiplayer than I do in Warzone. And that includes Modern Warfare in 2019, where I logged more time in Warzone. And Warzone didn't launch until March of that year, right? I spent more time in Warzone than I did in multiplayer, and I logged a lot of time in multiplayer.
Yeah,
Give you an idea of just how much time that I've been put. How much of a Warzone player over a multiplayer player I am. This year has been, I am 3 days and change in Warzone. And 3 days and change in Resurgence, about even. And I am 6.5 days in multiplayer and 5 days and change in zombies.
I'll have to look and see what my stats are for that, because it's going to probably be double, maybe triple that, just because I'm a fucking no-lifer, but I do touch grass,
You are way ahead of me. Like, you were like, I think I was looking the other day. I think you're at like 13 or 14 days played.
In multi or in Warzone?
Which is about where I usually am. Like, that's usually what I log in a year, and very little multi.
Yeah, I've played a lot of games, and more so for Warzone than multiplayer. But like I said, I want to get back to playing a little bit more multiplayer, and because that is fun. I actually, it's funny. I was telling Jigsy the other day. It was either yesterday or today. I never really liked Hardpoint until I started playing the beta.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna start playing some more Hardpoint.
Hardpoint's fun. I like Hardpoint. It's definitely it mixes it up a little bit. I like I like mode. I like it when the game has flow to it. I don't love playing free for all or playing team deathmatch as much because I feel like the maps don't have any flow. Right? There's no, you're constantly getting, ear hold where you don't expect someone to be. When you spawn in, it's hard to determine where you need to go. The rewind in Black Ops 6 was like the ultimate misery playing team deathmatch because you could spawn in and you could go around the map and have no idea where everybody's fighting. If everyone's running suppressed weapons, like no idea where everybody is. And that was that to me was the worst mode in that map because there was just, no flow. Sometimes you turn the corner, there's 3 guys standing there, and other times you turn the corner and it's like there's nobody there, and you turn the next corner, there's nobody there, and you'll run half the length of the map before you find a gunfight.
Right.
And so it was always like, so those modes drive me nuts. Objective modes where there's something to, some reason to move and you can kind of understand how the map is flowing and where people are going, to me are phenomenal. I love those modes. So like Hardpoint is one because, you know where the objective is. Domination, of course you can look at the map and you can read where people are going to be going to and where the fight should be at, especially when maps are contested. Even Kill Confirmed has more flow to it because you can see where the tokens are popping up.
You know where the spawns are too.
Yeah, and you understand the spawns, and so it's like those modes to me are very fun to play. I try to avoid team deathmatch as much as possible. Like whenever I have whenever there's a mode that mode pops up, I'm always questioning like, do I love this map? If I don't love this map, I'm probably not playing it.
Yeah. I don't mind TDM that much. TDM and KC are the 2 main modes that I play when I do play multiplayer, but I don't really like Domination that much, if I'm being real. Not as much as I think Hardpoint's better because Hardpoint, there's rotations and everything else, right? Like the
Hardpoint moves.
That's why it's also one of the competitive modes, along with S&D and, control. But anyway, yeah, I think I think multiplayer, they got us back on track. I am disappointed with the content overall for Warzone Big Map, especially this season. Like they didn't do shit. Like we're not getting anything, bro.
No, and Big Map has just been. I can only hope that they are just punting Big Map until the integration, the integration probably in December in season 1, where they start giving us some stuff to tag us along until they launch for Dansk.
I wish they'd just communicate that. Just be like,
us.
Hey, listen,
yeah,
guys, we know we haven't done shit for you all year for this big map, but we have, we have a few things that are coming here in the next season, those kind of things. Like the communication, it's so funny. That's part of the COD cycle too, because if you notice the communication at first is up.
Super busy.
Even with Sledgehammer this year, it's gradually gone down.
Well, yeah. I mean, people are moving off, and I feel like they feel like there's not a lot to communicate to us at all, right? That they can, because everything has to be super secret, hush hush.
Remember how fast they were jumping onto like all the broken shit that was in the game, like those fucking revolvers? Like that didn't even last a day. And they were constantly communicating with us about that.
I will say they haven't really broken anything in a while.
Dude, I think that RAL kit's pretty fucking broken.
Yeah, it hasn't quite caught on, and it's bugged.
I hope it doesn't, because that thing fucking blows. 2 taps and you're done, bro.
Yeah, it's a little harder to use. It's not as user-friendly, and the reloading is bugged. Is that still bugged?
I don't know. I don't use it. I've been just running basically the meta right now, like AR SMG with not even really sniping that much because we've been playing a lot faster. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of no point to do that.
What are you running right now?
STG and the static.
Okay, so that hasn't changed.
No, no.
Especially
STG's been the funnest weapon for me to. I mean, outside of the interceptor early on, the funnest weapon for me to run. Like it's really good. And so also too, I'm not running that Jack glassless optic on it.
Yeah. What do you
Try
run?
the SZ recharge.
Is that the one that is? It's kind of got like that yellow holographic look and the 3 dots.
Nope.
No? SC
It's
recharge.
it's over by the AMOPS V4. That that optic that was kind of the meta optic last year.
Last year.
Yeah, it's like 2 slots over. I saw DJ using it. It's kind of similar to that. It does have a red dot, but it's got a wider like sight picture in the lens. Oh my god! See what I just did?
I wasn't gonna say nothing.
Yeah, but so it's got a wider sight picture. Dude, it's great. I think that's part of why I've been able to kind of beam people out of the sky too.
Good sight pick. Yeah. I like the Jack glassless. When you're used to it, it's not that difficult to use.
It's good for ADS. Like your ADS penalty's different. Like it's better than the recharge that I was talking about.
And it either has none or it has negative or good effect on recoil. So it actually does some recoil assistance compared to some of the other red dots that don't have that. So there's definitely a better feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people in switching over to thermals are coming back, which is kind of interesting. I've been dying a lot more to thermals and smoke, which good on them for doing it.
That one with the green is a fucking cheat code, dude. You know what I'm talking about? That came in a bundle, didn't it?
Yes, that's in the vault, the Vault Dweller bundle.
Yeah, no, it's really good. We got shit on last night by somebody that was running that. So it was good times.
Yeah, but I've switched over to. Let's see here. I don't love the static. I didn't love the static when it came out. I don't love it now. It's not my favorite gun. I have been running the Striker, actually.
The 9 or the just regular one?
The regular Striker.
I didn't like it. I tried to set that up. I set up a meta class for that, and then I used it 1 or 2 matches, and I just didn't like how it felt. So I went back to my static build.
Yeah, it's got a slower. It's a slower firing weapon, so you have to be a little more on top of it. It's it's less forgiving if you miss shots.
Yeah.
But it's really effective and it's ranged. It has great range and accuracy. Because it's slower firing, it doesn't get away from you as easily. So it's been actually a good sniper support as well. Ever since they nerfed the STG close range. They kind of killed that sniper support, in my opinion, more than they should have. So I switched over to this. I also have, I've been running the Polyot, whatever.
Polyamot?
LMG. Yeah.
I just call it Pulley for short. Makes it easy.
Yeah. And that thing is broken as hell.
I've died a couple times to that in the last couple weeks, but it's not as pervasive as like the RPK meta was. So
which is weird because when you look at it, aside from a little bit of a loss of mobility, which on the big map should matter less, the thing tops out at like 900 milliseconds. Unlike the STG, which at 45 meters or so starts jumping up to like 1100. Like 1050, 1100. And it's got a 100 round mag default.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a beamer, man. You build it right and it doesn't move. Like you just sit there and pump 100 rounds downrange and just wipe everybody. It's such an easy gun to use. I'm having a great time with it. And it's just been it's everything the STG was when it was broken, but it doesn't drop off.
Yeah, and I don't feel like the STG is broken anymore, but it's still decent. Like they didn't brick it.
No, it's not
fun
broken.
to use.
It's not bricked. It is fun. It is good to use. I just feel like on the longer range engagements, it struggles.
Yeah,
I've had a lot of folks get away from me that shouldn't have gotten away, right? Because I had to pick up the STG off the ground or off somebody's body. And so I think it's a little better. It's been a better, especially in ranked. I've really noticed the ability for it to just rip people off of headies on ranked. And it's one of those guns that it's got enough rounds that you can go toe to toe with somebody on toe to toe with somebody running the Car 98 now, because they're not able to get their it's not at, because that gun's not broken anymore. um they have to two shot it, and it's been very effective for me at knocking that off.
I haven't really run into any Car 98s, except I forgot to tell you this. I on Friday I ended up playing with my boy. Remember we talked about this? But we 1v1'd on Shipment and Rust.
And how did that go?
The first match I beat him like 30-19 using SMGs. Then we went to sniping, and he gave me a run for my money. The first one was supposed to be quick scoping, and then I realized he was hard scoping all the fucking time. So I'm like, all right, cool. So the next match we hard scoped, and I beat him all 3 matches.
Nice.
But he gave me a run for my money the last 2, and then he went on a fucking 7-kill run on Shipment with the SMGs. It kind of had me a little bit worried, but overall I still won. But we were using the Car 98. You're right. It's not as broken.
It's not broken like it used to be. Well, because remember when it came out, every hitbox was treated the same, right? So like your headshot to the headshot was instant down, and it was 2-shot everywhere else on the body at all ranges, right? So it was kind of like it was, and it had full blown aim assist, right? It had the full.
Yeah, it still does. Still got the drag.
Not as much though, and it doesn't have. They got rid of the hip fire drag, so it used to drag. It used to drag in hip fire just like any other gun you have, and it doesn't do that anymore. So they adjusted it, I think, put it in the right spot, and it plays better now. It's still good for mobility sniping, but it's just not as OP as it was.
I just stick to my cat, bro.
I just hate that gun. I don't know why. I think visually it's bulky, it's ugly looking.
Hey, by the way, wait, whoa. Did they or did they not come out and say in last season, towards the end of last season, or early season 5, no, it was right before season 5, that they were going to make the other snipers one shot again without having to use an attachment? Where the fuck is that?
Well, that was reported by JGod and multiple times, and it was told to him by devs at Activision on a call, allegedly.
Yeah, JGod is 100% credible. If he says something, he was told that. In no way would I, you know what I mean? Like, if he says it, I believe it.
But keep in mind, 1, it's Activision. They change their minds all the time. So they might have told him that and then internally said, maybe not. 2, timelines change. So they might have intended that for season 5, but maybe, tomorrow we get our weapons balancing pass. Maybe we'll see it there, right? Because they probably, that's not something you want to change before World Series of Warzone.
Yeah, that's true too.
So very likely that, we've had no changes really in the last 3 weeks, right? They haven't touched anything.
And I've been okay with it. Just leave it. As far as I'm concerned, just leave us alone the rest of the way until the next fucking integration comes.
Buff a bunch of other stuff.
Or
right?
yes, buff.
Yeah,
some
leave
shit,
the good stuff where it is.
Not shotguns or shields. Don't buff them.
Yeah, but buff a lot of the ARs, buff a lot of the other stuff. But so all of that, and it could be something that they just decided, we'd rather bring about in Black Ops. Like that could Treyarch could have stepped in and said, we're taking that, and we're not going to let you have that until we integrate.
Well,
so, or you know what? They scrapped the whole idea and they're going to, shit on snipers again for another year.
Dude, it's been a rough few years for sniping overall. I mean, it's better now. So now in Warzone 2, they let it be good for about 3 weeks, and then they fucking nerfed everything, and then it sucked again. Because I used that Signal 50, and I was getting kills with it, and it was fun to use for a little while. Then they brought it back, and they made, the Victus, and the Stalker came in, and, it was decent for a week or two there. And then it was dog shit the rest of the way. And then sniping has been decent in this game.
It's been decent if you run the cat, and the XMR has been good on on Resurgence maps.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, the problem is you have all of these sniper rifles. Many of them are fun to use. Many of them are excellent sniper rifles in multiplayer, and they're all trash in Warzone. And they've been trash since the integration or since the switch over to Warzone 2. They haven't given us any fun whatsoever. And they even brought back the damn intervention. And they made that a really good sniper rifle, and it's fun to run. It just doesn't kill anybody in Warzone. And
no, it doesn't. I think I've died to it a couple times, maybe in multiplayer even recently, but other than that, not in Warzone. I'm legitimately not as afraid of snipers. More so now than in Warzone 2, but still not like it was in Verdansk. You remember Verdansk, dude. If you looked up on one of those ridges and you saw the glint, it was already too fucking late. You were dead as shit.
Yeah. I mean, sniping used to mean something. And shoot, sometimes, I mean, I used to really enjoy sitting back and just seeing if I could get go for long range kills. And my longest range in Warzone 2, I remember I was shooting from those buildings below Observatory on the kind of the east side of Observatory.
Yeah.
Shooting into the hills, and there were people on the hills kind of skirmishing with another team. And I got somebody at about 350 meters, which was, decent enough with explosive rounds. So it was a one shot down. And I swear that's like the max you could hit before they just like the rounds just bounced off people. But go back to, Caldera. My longest on Caldera was like 800 yards or 800 meters. And there was still room to go. I didn't have a chance, I just couldn't land one farther. But like, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous what they've done to sniping.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's like, I want to ask whoever's in charge of that, like, show me on the doll where the fucking sniper hurt you. Like,
in the head.
You know what I mean? Like, show me that. But, another game where sniping it's not point and click, dude. You have to account for, like, it's more of a realistic thing, is Battlefield. And we've gotten some good Battlefield news the last day or so.
Battlefield is really coming around, on paper at least. That's what they're saying. They had the interview with IGN. Shocking that anybody still bothers with them, but they did the interview. Sounded really uplifting. And I've just been hearing good things about it.
They're going back to one of the developers. He's a newer guy that I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but a newer guy that I've come across. He mentioned that they're going back to more of like a battle. It's going to be a modern setting, Battlefield 3 and 4 like. And he also joked that we'll have a scoreboard on launch, which is fucking great. So that's awesome. I mean, one of the things that, I really want to see, and I know like Pro Westy and Tactical Brit are fucking beside themselves after seeing all this all the news. They're excited about it because they might even have been Battlefield players like beforehand. I'm just excited because if they're doing that, that tells me that they know what the formula to make a good Battlefield was. And they're doing that, not trying this other bullshit, with the fucking wingsuits and all the abilities and all that other shit. Like, I'm truly excited because that's also going to give me another option. And I tweeted this earlier too. Because there's rumor that there is a BR, according to both of those two guys.
And they said there's another mode coming.
Yeah.
An undisclosed mode.
If it is a good traditional BR without all the matchmaking nonsense, I will fucking uninstall Warzone immediately. Gone. Bye. I won't play it.
Well, we'll have to see about the matchmaking because, Battlefield has matchmaking too. It's not an SBMM free game.
No, I don't think it is, but I don't think it'll. I bet you they won't approach it like Call of Duty does.
I think it's one of those things we'll see. We'll have to see, and we'll have to see where we end up with Warzone. Kind of going forward. Warzone needs a good competitor. Right?
It does.
Apex Legends is its own thing, which hasn't been. From what I've read on the timeline, Apex players haven't been thrilled with Apex lately. Definitely having issues with Fortnite kind of comes and goes, but it definitely doesn't have has more of the kid feel to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Compared to Warzone. So, I think we need a good grown up VR. We've had some of these other shooters out there. Delta Force had a terrific open beta. A lot of fun to play that game. That will be launching early next year with console and controller support.
Can I ask you something since you mentioned that?
Yeah.
Why do these companies launch these games without controller support? That's the majority of the player base that they're going to have is people on controller. Like, why do you do that?
Well, I mean, look at the struggle that we have to balance mouse and key and controller now, right? If you look at that game, especially since it's extraction shooter, so you have all the extraction backpack managing elements that you have in Tarkov and you have in Gray Zone, right? Mm-hmm. And you look at the challenge of you look at just how much is involved in doing that aspect of it alone. Trying to do that on controller, I think, is going to be a lot more difficult, right? How do you give somebody enough control where they're able to use they're able to work to use it properly and efficiently, and how do you replicate that on controller, right? Do you just give mouse and key players a huge advantage in how fast they can use manipulate their backpack and their inventory, in an extraction shooter, an extraction looter game? Inventory management is very critical to be able to carry everything, to be able to access stuff that you need when you need it quickly, right? So, do you dumb that down, which is a big part of it, or do you lean into it being more of a mouse and key thing? I don't know. It's challenges. We'll see how they manage it, right? There have been a ton of games that have ported over to controller support. And when you get into them, they're terrible, right?
Well, yeah, because it's like half-assed, like, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't build the game from the ground up with controller support. That's my point. It's like, if you know that that's part of the business plan to eventually port it to console, port it to controllers and stuff like that, why not just fucking build it that way to begin with? Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to my simple mind, but I'm thinking about it in terms of, like, the money or whatever.
Yeah.
And those kind of things. But, back on Battlefield, we're going to have a lot of good information on Battlefield that's going to be coming out. And if you guys are not following Battlefield of Duty on Twitter, that's a page run by a friend of ours. Please be sure to do so. He's also going to be in the Discord running the Battlefield channel because we want to be, we want to have a community that's mixed and not just Call of Duty, because we realize that there are other games out there. I know that's a shocker to some of you, but there are other games out there that, we want to see do well and we know have vibrant communities and we want to appeal to everybody. So,
yeah, well, and let's be clear, we're gamers. We're not just Call of Duty gamers. We play, a variety of games, both on and off stream. So, having that, opening that up to as much of the community, and we do bring these games up in the podcast here on the regular, right? So it's we want to touch base on everything that's going on and keep tabs on that. We want to be be your one-stop shop for gaming. So hit that Discord up and definitely keep checking us out. So, but yeah, with Battlefield announcements coming, I'm very curious about it. We're kind of entering that weird spot in the COD cycle and kind of gaming in general, where we've got a lot of stuff coming up at the end of the year. Once we get into the holiday season, a lot of new games are going to drop. Black Ops will be out. New seasons coming out. Couple new games getting ready. We should get the Gray Zone nighttime season out. But at the same time, we're just kind of, it feels like a lot of games are in that holding pattern, right? They're winding down their year of support. We're getting ready for the new launches. World Series of Warzone is over. So there's kind of like, what next? So we're trying to line up some, we've got some special guests in mind. We're trying to cement some times, kind of delve into some of these other games, into some great topics with them. This episode is going to air almost a week from now, date of recording, because Jay is traveling. I am actually, if you're not familiar, you don't watch us in person. I have a space in my garage that I've built, and I actually have a car lift right under my desk. Lift 9,000 pounds of vehicle if I wanted to, tip my desk over. But I have sold that, and I'm actually getting rid of that starting today. So I'm going to be tearing everything down and moving that out of the way so I can get this car lift out of here, and then building an actual room in here, an office, so that this cabinet, I'm not sure if that's going to stay or go. But there'll be some big changes. Hopefully, I can get most of it done by the next time we record. Otherwise, I might be camless. We'll see. But yeah, it's been a good episode. A little bit of technical issues with our live stream, unfortunately. So it'll be good to splice that all together. But I wanted to thank everybody for popping in and sticking around, even though things kind of went sideways on us. And hopefully you had a good episode. And we're going to catch you on the next one.